Hello and welcome to CUNY TV Presents, an initiative focusing on filmmakers and their outstanding cinematic work. I am Sybil Raimundo Santiago, the Executive Director and Head of Programming for the Soho International Film Festival, and I thank you for joining us today. For the past 14 years, our festival has strived to encourage new and seasoned filmmakers from New York City and around the globe to create fresh and innovative works of cinema. Following this special presentation, you can watch their films and discover stories that we hope will inspire you. It brings me great pleasure to introduce you to the filmmakers on today's panel, all of whom had their wonderful films shown at the festival. With us today is Nick Jones, the writer and director of the film Dulo, as well as Meryl Botula, writer and director of the short film Buttball. And finally, joining us is Shani Hadjian, writer and actor of the film Up or Out. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. It's so great to see you again. I wanted to talk a little bit about the filmmaking in general. I wanted to ask a question of what brought you into doing films in general and sort of the art of storytelling. Perhaps we can start with you, Meryl.
Sure, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it was born of frustration as an actor, of wanting to tell a particular story, wanting to see women in positions of power behind the camera, behind the scenes. And Buttball just came from just writing on my own, and I was doing it on the side while I was working in independent film with friends and other collaborators, but just started quietly doing my own, like seeing if I could do it. And certainly running right into the fire and having no idea what I was going to be getting into for any of it, being writer, director, producer. At least I had the smarts not to also be an actor in it as well. But wrangling many young children was its own challenges as well. But yeah.
Of course. Well, but in general, so you're saying it was the experience of this specific film that we're presenting here that got you started into the filmmaking?
I did make a feature before Buttball, and that was definitely walking into the inferno of learning filmmaking, learning the nomenclature, learning how to shape and tell a story, learning the power of editing, but definitely all DIY and learn as I go. Yeah.
Well, I think that's most of us and probably relate to this. I want to ask the question the same with you, Shani, because we all have different journeys getting into filmmaking. How about for you? What was it that got you to write and start doing this?
Yeah, it is similar, but writing goes back way further. Just like as a kid, I would take computer paper and like staple it into a book and write stories. And then even when I first moved to the city, I was writing some screenplays just like in my mind, not really knowing what I was doing. And then as I also am an actor, that's my background. As I started acting in more films and everything, I started realizing like, you get to know the, like actually how the formatting for writing a screenplay and just studying it more and more. And then in 2015 for me, I was having lunch with a friend and we were talking about the lack of representation in films, and we were like, let's change that. So I went home and I wrote the feature screenplay of the short being aired in like 2 weeks. I was so excited. And then, so that was 2015, and then finally finalized it in 2017, just did workshops, and it was that thing where I was like, oh yeah, this can be powerful, and people seem to like it. I really liked it. So that's kind of, it snowballed that way for me. And then we created the short as like a proof of concept.
I love that. So it's been a few years journey for you.
Yeah.
In terms of conceptualizing it.
Yeah, definitely. And it evolved. Like at one point, I didn't know what to do, with it. I was like, no, it works, but I want to do something different. And, my wife was like, well, what have you disliked about, because it's a rom-com, and she's like, well, what have you disliked about all the other rom-coms with a similar story? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fix that. So then I got to adjust it into what I think was a little bit, more apropos for now.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. How about you, Nick? What was your journey like? Was it writing first? Was it acting?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a writer. When I graduated college, I moved to New York, and I was a playwright and a puppeteer for most of my 20s. And then I lucked out and got some work as a TV writer and went out to LA, and I worked on a number of shows. And this idea for a film came out of just sort of wanting to do something for myself that was mine and personal, and frankly, because I felt like, wow, I got to learn how to direct at some point. And this was an idea that seemed manageable and fun.
Yeah. Well, it seems like all three of you are actually writers, and it's kind of, I'd be remiss not to mention the strike going on right now. So when it comes to writing, I wanted to maybe talk a little bit the importance of telling the story or authentic stories coming from your point of view, what that weight is and what the meaning of it is for our industry in general. Any of you want to kind of speak on that?
I mean, it can be life-changing for people to tell certain stories. Can be life-changing for people seeing them. So, I mean, I could go on about this all day, but I'll just say it can be life-changing just to see yourself or your story represented on screen. So that's what I have to say.
I'd just say that, the stories come from the writer. That's, it's a hugely collaborative effort, but it starts with the written word, and I think most actors understand that, and really anyone in the industry understands that it starts there, and it'll end there if the writers don't have a way to support themselves.
Yeah.
And hopefully the powers that be will understand that soon.
Yes, of course, and that's why I just wanted you to speak on it, since we have the audiences as well that listen, and so they understand and kind of get an insight on what it is that we're fighting for, or what you're fighting for. Do you have something to add to it, Marilyn?
Just that, I mean, here you're seeing three individuals who are writers, but when you're thinking about, to think about TV shows, be it variety show, be it scripted television, film streaming services, it's teams and teams and teams of people that are behind it all, that are shaping and crafting. And yeah.
And this is why I had asked that question here, because this is an educational channel, and people that watch the show hopefully will learn also from what we do and what we're doing and what we're hoping to fight for, which is really in the mainstream as well, affection. Speaking of telling stories, I'm going to start with you, Meryl. I want to talk about your film Butt Ball, which hopefully our audiences will get to see soon. So Butt Ball is a coming-of-age tale pinpointing a crucial moment in the life of a fifth grader as she realizes her own world of gender politics. Now, without giving away the whole story, I wanted you to just speak on the way you had shot the film, the choice that you made to shoot it at a certain era, and specifically you have kind of two storylines that are parallel working, sort of, that ties in. I'm curious what brought about that idea.
It's how I remember particular events in my life. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so what Butt Ball is as a game, other people may know it as wall ball, or another word that I probably can't use, but we'll say butts up maybe. And so Butt Ball is a recreational game that was played on the playground. There was one occasion where I was the one female to play the game with the pack of fifth grader boys, and my adult brain has merged the day the Challenger exploded with the day that I played Butt Ball with the boys. And so that was my entry point into the story, and then to explore the young girl, her notion of excelling at sports, or what's particular of male gender, and navigating her crush on the boy that she adores. I find that also at the same time, there's such a sweet spot for young girls before puberty where they're kind of limitless before they grow breasts and go through huge hormonal shifts that where society either tells you what you are or who you are, what you could do before you're starting to figure things out for yourself. And so Bapal is a marriage of all of those things, but with the 80s nostalgia piece as well. I hope that that was a roundabout way of answering.
I understand exactly. Once people watch,
Yeah.
they'll understand why it seemed like it's round, but there's a reason, and,
Yes.
and I understand. I don't want to give it all away because
Right.
I want the audiences to actually enjoy and watch it. But I love working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well, let me start by saying that I struck gold with each and every child because they were so willing to do anything, so incredibly patient, because we all know that shooting things is hurry up and wait. And when you're on a very tight DIY budget, hurry up and wait is even faster. And so, you have a limited amount of time to use the particular locations and to get as much as you can. And that asks a lot of an adult, let alone fifth graders. And so I was so lucky. So in that sense, it was extremely easy. Finding one thing I did not think about was that you do see the challenge, you see the classroom discovery of the Challenger explosion. I didn't think about that when I was handing the script over to parents for them to okay the kids being in it, obviously. And then also, I didn't consider that when we were shooting, before shooting we did, but leading up to it, I was like, wait a minute, how are we going to do this? Because this isn't a history, I'm not the appropriate person to give the history lesson and I wasn't going to rattle a bunch of children to make them cry, to have a particular reaction. So we just went through it and just spoke very loosely of, okay, now let's see this kind of reaction. Now let's kind of see this reaction. And they would watch Michelle Feder, the woman who played the teacher who was incredible, just go through her monologues. And we just let her go and they would react to that. But we never actually sat down and talked about
The impact of it.
and what any of that was like. And I grappled with it. I checked in with a few parents about it. And ultimately it was decided that let's just go around it.
I mean, your kids were great. They really
Fantastic.
did wonderful. I wonder what the conversation was like after.
Yes.
With the parents, since you didn't get a
Yes.
chance to do that, but just independent filmmaking. There's some
Yes.
things. There's only so much you can plan ahead sometimes, and I understand. But that's very interesting. I'm going to segue to
Yes.
Nick only because it's very interesting because the film that Meryl had has this child. Children, they don't think about gender or race or anything when they're young. It's very innocent. And like you said, she's kind of like, she loves playing these games. She plays with the boys. Like, you don't even think about the fact that she's playing a boy game. It's just, it's a game for her, and she justifies it in the film. Ironically, we go to Dulo. We're talking about a man. Okay, let me read a little bit about Dulo. It's a story about a man named Danny who, despite receiving certification through the mail, combats sexism and a profound lack of trust in his abilities as a doula. So you have this character who sincerely believes that he has this ability and this is what he's meant to do. After, without giving away the storyline, after a stint in his past life. And he's basically fighting this whole gender identity, per se, of what's supposed to be a doula. Can you talk about this process and how this idea came about?
Yeah, I think it's been a while. I think it came from just the title Dulo as opposed to doula. Kind of gave me the seed of the idea, and I knew this actor whose name is Danny Mastrogiorgio, and I had a workshop to play with him play was produced, but he wasn't available at that time. But I always just, like, wanted to work with him again. I mean, I still, like, I love him as an actor, and he has this kind of gruff, traditionally masculine vibe about him. And he can play things that are absurd that I write, like, really straight, and that's my favorite thing. You know, he doesn't wink at the audience at all, ever, and I find it hilarious. So I just started thinking of this character who was an ex-con, who, like, had really great intentions and a blind spot to, like, how other people might perceive him, and is just, like, earnestly trying to pursue a career in this thing that is going to be difficult for him. And he's not necessarily great at it either, but he's trying really hard. And the film is, it's in the style of a mockumentary, because this was my first, you know, attempt to make a film, and I just thought that'd be sort of forgiving for me, and that we could also, like, improvise and, you know, still cut it all together.
I thought it worked really well because your actor sold it really well. I thought it seemed like he really believed that he was supposed to be doing this, and this was his ability. And I think that's what really made it fun.
Yeah, I was really happy with his performance, and he's a great guy, and it was really fun to work with.
I also saw you had Natasha Lyonne in the film. She's a brilliant actress. You know, we like to claim her here in New York because she works in a lot of New York films.
Yeah. Well, I was a
how-
writer on Orange is the New Black, so I knew Natasha from New York theater a little bit even before that. So she's an old friend, and just kind of did me a favor to do a little cameo in there. And then she brought in James Rensone, who's in it as well. And then actually, I mean, if we're talking about, like, New York folks, Mia Baron, who plays the mom in it, was just on stage at Lincoln Center and just won a Lortel Award for her performance.
Fantastic. Oh, so deserving. She's a brilliant actress.
Yeah,
so.
she's awesome.
No, what were some, you know, that's what I loved about it too, because I saw a lot of the New York people in there. I was like, oh, this is such a New Yorker film. How did the team come together on this?
Yeah, they're all mostly all New York actors, but I was living in LA.
I know, I remember.
So, but
now you're here.
But Danny Mastrogiorgio is definitely here, and Natasha's here. I basically, you know, bought Danny a ticket to fly out and do this, like, over a couple of days. And actually, there's some children in small parts in my film as well, and a real baby. And those, at the time, I was on Orange is the New Black, and then I worked on the show called Glow, and the two showrunners, it's also in the 80s.
I missed that show.
Yes,
Yeah.
that show as well.
So the two showrunners, Liz and Carly, had recently given birth. You know, well, no, sorry, that's wrong. Carly had a baby, and she lent me her baby. And Liz lived across the street, and she had a son who, I guess he's probably around 6 or 7, and he came across the street while we were filming and lent his acting talents as well.
I love it. So something for the audience to learn who's getting into filmmaking. You can borrow your friends' kids
Yes.
if you need to.
Yeah.
That's whatever it takes.
Yep.
Independent.
Borrow
filmmaking.
everything you can.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's all about the support, right? This is what this industry is about. This is what we're all doing. We're all filmmakers here. We're all telling stories, and the support is really important. So always remember your tribe. I always say find your tribe and remember them and be good to each other, because this is how you get projects made.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it is. But the joy after is always beautiful,
Yeah.
isn't it, when it's made?
Definitely.
I'm going to jump to you, Shani. So your project, ironically, I didn't think about this until I started looking at all 3 projects. I was like, you know, there is a tie-in on this, because your film really is a rom-com. It's a love story, right? So just to see your official story on it, it tells the story of 2 people, Isabella and Lucy, whose boss pits them against each other at work, but fate has another plan. So what I loved about your film, and I know I keep mentioning this whole gender thing, is it's because your film is really about these 2 people, even though they're both LGBTQA members, but it's not about that. It's about this story of these two people in, just in the world, right? And sort of like their experience. So I want you, because you say it better. I've spoken to you about this film before, so I would like for you to talk to this audience so they can hear as well why you wrote this, from the feature to the short, and what it is that you were trying to accomplish with the film.
Yeah, and I'll preface it by saying that this was written about 5 years ago, and I do think that there have been some queer films that have come out since then that have almost done what I've done. But it was really important to me to kind of showcase what comes next after the coming out story. I've lived my life out for many years now, and although I am a queer person and identify as so, I am many other things. So I wanted to make sure that that was not at the forefront of this story. Nowhere in the script is the word queer, gay, lesbian, anything used. They are just humans. And I wanted to change the narrative around a couple of things. One, in a lot of rom-coms, the two leads are of the same race, and it's not as racially diverse as we see around us. And I wanted that to be showcased because that is part of our world. And I wanted their sexuality not be a part of it, like at all. Just they are fully fledged humans living their lives. And then also a lot of the time in movies featuring two women, it is like they are highly sexualized, and I wanted to bring it back to the connection and the love of these two people, because that is a universal feeling. And I always kind of felt like when the queer storyline became about coming out, that audiences that did not have to go through that or don't connect with that, it might have put up a barrier to like, I don't understand that. But connecting with somebody is something that everybody wants, feels, needs, and so I wanted that to be at the forefront, just to make the universal storyline, the storyline universal. And yeah, I think we succeeded. It was so much fun. We had a lot of queer people involved, and everybody was really proud and excited to be a part of something that showcased inclusivity and acceptance.
And we talked about that this is a family movie.
Oh, yes. Yes. My cousin came to the private screening. She was 8 at the time. She loved it. She ended up coming out a couple years later. Well, first she cut her hair. I used to have short hair, and then she cut her hair. So I just think she wants to be me. But but yeah, so it is a family movie. You can watch it with anybody of any age. It is, in the short, it's an 8-minute glimpse of what will be for these two.
Yes.
And it's lovely.
Well, this is what, you're talking about her coming out in, I'm sure, a supportive environment. And we
Yes.
talk about support in the industry in general for filmmaking, so for filmmakers and independent filmmaking. So I hope that today's conversation and the audience is getting to know you guys and getting to know the projects that you're working on. I'm a filmmaker myself. Like, it's not easy, but we love what we do, and I feel like we are very lucky because we do have people that support us and back us so that we can keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully the same happens to the people that watch and decide to get into this industry. It's not easy, but you have to love it, and if you love it, it comes back to you tenfolds. So, yeah. Well, time does fly when you're having fun. Thank you again to our guest filmmakers for joining us today. We look forward to seeing more of your work. So please keep an eye on these filmmakers. I hope everyone at home enjoyed today's conversation, and we encourage you to spread the word on CUNY TV Presents. We also invite you to please follow the Soho International Film Festival on our website, sohofilmfest.com, and on social media at Soho Film Fest. Again, I am Sybil Raimundo Santiago, along with the CUNY TV family, the Soho Film Fest family, and our panelists today, saying thank you for watching. Until next time.